Wrestling fans, if you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget to ring that bell.
I'm Terry Sullivan along with Dave Drason, and today we are going to talk about one of the biggest stars in Detroit. In fact, one of the biggest stars around the world, especially in Japan. The one and only Abdullah the Butcher.
Oh, the Madman from the Sudan.
Real name, Larry Shreve, from this area.
Yes, he was born January 11th, 1941. In Windsor, Ontario, so right across the river from Detroit, Michigan. He was one of, I think, 11 children, and he was brought up very poor. And I think because of the tough part of town that he lived in, you know, he had to defend for himself. And he was a actual judo and jiu-jitsu master. So that's where he got his formal ring sort of initiation. Mm-hmm. Then I believe the promoter was Bert Ruby, discovered him and talked him into becoming a professional wrestler. And he made his debut in 1958. And I believe it was in Canada, up in the Montreal area. And his first recorded big-time memory would have been his first appearance at Cobo Arena in 1966. And at the time, he still wore the judo long pants, but his name here was Zalis Amara. So this is well before he became Abdullah the Butcher.
There was a famous wrestler from the 40s known as Sealy Amara, so I think they were sort of doing a takeoff on that.
Mm-hmm. And after he lasted in Detroit maybe 6 months to almost a year, I've seen him on CKLW TV, Big Time Wrestling on Channel 9 out of Windsor. He was at Cobo Arena. And, I mean, he did the territory. But as a kid, I used to go downtown early in the day, and I'd go to Hudson's and I'd go to Woolworth, and then I'd go over to the bus station and I'd just walk around the streets of Detroit. And this one day I happened to be at the bus station, and I'm standing there, and I look, and there's Zalis Amara, and it's like he's getting on a Greyhound bus. And me as a wrestling fan, as most young wrestling fans think, these guys travel in limousines and, private jets. And, here, Zalis Amara's getting on a Greyhound bus. And it's like just stupefied me. So I was polite, and I had my Polaroid camera. And I said, "Sir, you mind if I take a picture?" And he's getting on the steps of the bus, and he's waving at me like this. So I have that picture to this day. Years later, this would have been in the mid-2000s. He was Abdullah the Butcher then, and he came in for a special appearance on a local show. And I happened to be the guest ring announcer that day. So at the beginning, I get to the dressing room and stuff, and he's there with his handler, Honest John. And I walk up to him, and I explained who I was, and I said, "I don't know if you're ever going to remember this memory." And I pulled out the picture, and I says, "Back in 1966, I happened to be at the bus station in downtown Detroit, and you were getting on a Greyhound bus." And I showed him the picture, and he laughed. And he says, "Let me tell you why I get on Greyhound buses and go to shows. I have a brand new Cadillac. I would drive it from Windsor over to Detroit. And if any of the other boys, knew that I had my big Cadillac in a car, they'd want to ride. I never wanted them to be in my car." So that's why he always took the Greyhound bus to other shows in the territory.
So didn't have to worry about his car getting up either. Right?
Well, yeah, having, if you, like, the bad thing is if you had to drive Dr. Jerry Graham around, oh boy, not Dr. Jerry Graham Jr., let me clarify that, but Dr. Jerry Graham Sr., oh boy, he was a bad one to be taken on road trips with. I have plenty of experience with that.
Yeah, he was notorious, as was Abdullah the Butcher. Now, how big was he when he started out?
He was about 350 pounds.
That big when
Yeah.
he first started?
Yeah.
Because I can remember pictures of him. He looked like he was a lot less than that. But I don't know. I never.
Well, TV puts on 50 pounds on you, so
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
That's why me and Terry, you know, what you were a svelte 158 and I'm maybe a 202.
right.
So
That's right.
fans, you know, if we
Yeah.
look a little bit bigger on TV here, it's not, you know, it's the cameras.
Toward the end, though, Abby was well into the 400-pound.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah.
got really big.
Yeah.
But he was still agile.
Yeah, he still could move.
You know, his first appearance here in, you know, as Abdullah the Butcher, you know, not Zayla Samara, was almost 8 years to the day at Cobo Arena. He made his first appearance as Abdullah the Butcher, June 29th, 1974. And, he was just a wildfire. You know,
Yeah.
he came in, you know, guns blazing, and everybody knew who he was because if you watched TV or, you know, read any of the national magazines of the day, you knew who Abdullah
Yeah.
the Butcher was.
He was a big name all
Yeah.
over Montreal and all over the country.
Yeah, he based himself out of Montreal for years,
Yeah.
and you know, was a big star up there, and going to Japan back and forth all the
Right.
time. You know, from you know a young time in his career, and he was an icon over there too.
Yeah. People ask me a lot as a ring announcer, did any particular wrestlers really scare you? And the answer is yes. The Sheik scared me all the time.
Yeah.
Because you never knew what he was going to do, and often I was in the path. But Bull Curry scared the hell out of me from the time I was knee-high until the time that I got to know him. But he was still another guy. Don't get in his way.
Yep.
But Butcher was a guy that I never wanted to mess with. I was always afraid of him, always very leery of him.
Oh, he was a freight train, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, he can still move. He was agile in the ring, and you never know what was going to happen. I remember when I mentioned the story about when I saw him, you know, back in the mid-2000s in the dressing room, and he explained to me about, you know, the photograph and why he took the Greyhound bus. There was also a good friend of mine who was on that show going against him that day by the name of Kevin Sullivan. And Kevin Sullivan, you know, me, him, and Abby were, you know, talking there, and he goes, "Hey, you know how Abby starts his matches. You know, the bell doesn't even ring, and you know he's on top of you, or you know, just chaos is going on."
Got the fork out?
Yeah. So Kevin Sullivan and, you know, Abby, you know, said to me, "Hey, what we're going to do when you are going to, you know, start to introduce us, we're going to both grab you and beat you up and toss you out of the ring, and who knows what's going to happen." That's like, I don't know about this. So anyway, I'm in the ring, you know, getting ready to announce them. I see one there in one corner, one in the other corner. I start to announce, and I see them coming toward me. I just got out of that
You're
ring.
a smart man.
Yeah, I wasn't going to
Yeah.
put up with that one because that wouldn't have been a pretty picture.
Absolutely.
Now, we talk about big-time memories here. Him as Abdullah the Butcher made a big impact here. He was almost, you know, comparable to the Sheik.
Sure.
You know, they were madmen. You know, they were always, you know, using foreign objects to poke, stab, use, you know, to gain a victory. And there was always blood somewhere in both of their matches. And here in the big time, they teamed up. And I think them teaming up, the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher, would have been just as scary for me when I was a fan when first time the Sheik and Bull Curry teamed up. I'm like, oh my God, these two, you know, I feel, you know, I better go to church and pray for
Right.
whoever's going against them because
Right,
it's just
yeah.
going to be chaos.
It's going to be murder. Right in the ring, front page of the Free Press.
Yeah. And at the time in the 70s, the Sheik was a frequent visitor to Japan, as was Abdullah the Butcher. And they teamed up and had many matches there, mainly against Terry and Dory Funk,
Oh,
which
classic,
those are just like classics.
Still, to this day.
Yeah, the Japanese people still talk about, you know, those matches.
Right.
And then they had a falling out, you know, in one of the matches. And then it was a big program over in Japan, the Sheik versus Abdullah the Butcher. And oh my God, you know, I don't know how much wrestling actually happened. I don't know how long both of them were in the ring, because the Japanese fans said they would fight outside the ring, up into the aisles, up into the seats, up into the bleachers, all the way back to the dressing room.
Yeah. And then they recreated that here in Detroit.
Yeah. So that's another big time memory if you were there at the time.
Yeah. They had several matches.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me bring this up also. Just like the Sheik, who had numerous managers over his career because he never spoke, Abdullah the Butcher was the same. You know,
right.
He never spoke on promos on TV, so he always had managers. And I can't even begin to, name how many he had. I know he had Eddie Creechman up in Montreal. He had Honest John Cheatham. He had Gary
Tony
Hart.
Angelo for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he had a number of managers speaking for him. And, the funny thing is that if Abdullah the Butcher, as we know him, Larry Shreve, ever did a promo on TV as himself, wrestling fans would have just probably died laughing in a way, because in truth, he had a very high, squeaky voice. And it's like, if he would have talked on TV, the mystique of Abdullah the Butcher would have been shattered right from there.
Yep, I agree. Yeah.
And one of the, things, a lot of people don't know about Abdullah the Butcher is that, as big as he was, we know he loved food. And he had a restaurant of his own in Atlanta.
That's right. And named it the House of Chinese Food and Ribs.
There's a combo there.
Yeah. Probably two of his favorites. But, our own Rudy Hill, one of the promoters of International Big Time Wrestling, used to be on tour with Insane Clown Posse around the United States, and talks about the times that they went to Abdullah Butcher's restaurant were always warmly welcomed. And if the restaurant were still around, which it isn't, you would see a picture of Rudy Hill there with Abby.
Yeah, and then Abby would welcome them into the restaurant, say, hey, order whatever you want. But knowing Abdullah the Butcher,
here's the bill.
There's the bill at the end of the meal, too. So he wasn't that hospitable. His legacy, lasted almost 50 years in the ring.
Yeah.
Over time, he was such a big man. That his in-ring talent just couldn't carry on anymore. He retired in 2012, but he's one of the few big-time stars that is still alive and with us.
And I think probably, too, one of the few members of the WWE Hall of Fame who never wrestled for the WWE.
And
go figure.
Just like a few weeks ago, he turned 80 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And he's still around.
Yep.
And now, Terry, is customary, could you give the fans here an introduction, as you used to do, for Abdullah the Butcher?
I will. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Sudan, weighing 400 pounds, Abdullah the Butcher.
To say that I'm a part of IBW.
I take pride in IBW that we are a family-run company.
It's a fight. It's a sport. IBW tradition has always mattered.
You're going to see world-class professional big-time wrestling at its best.
This ain't no sports entertainment. This is professional wrestling.
International Big Time Wrestling's The Fix. Each and every week, your fix of IBW action. You want entertainment? Look no further than Rox TV. International Big Time Wrestling!
Wrestling fans, if you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget to ring that bell.